Distance can be a major barrier to accessing quality healthcare on time. That's where Angel Flight East comes in. Welcome to Takeoff Talk with Angel Flight East, a nonprofit dedicated to providing free flights for children and adults who need medical treatment far from home. We don't know how many people forego medical care because they don't have accessible transportation, and that's what this podcast is here to change. Join passionate AFE staff members Jess Ames and Maddie Beck as they share real-life stories from people who have used AFE services to get the care they need when they need it.
Hey, frequent flyers, you are back with me, Maddie.
And me, Jess.
And today we have a different kind of guest for you. Harry Morales, the founder of Angel Flight East, is joining us today. Hey, Harry.
Hello there.
So, Harry,
welcome to your audience.
Can you give our audience a walkthrough of where Angel Flight came from and the story behind us?
Well, you have to go back to 1992, and Florida gets walloped with Hurricane Andrew. It wasn't supposed to be a level 5 hurricane, but it did, and it wiped out Homestead, Florida. I'm living in Philadelphia area, so that doesn't really impact you in the Northeast. But I guess I'm a quasi-computer nerd. And back then, before Facebook and everything else, there was a company called CompuServe. And so you joined different groups, and I joined the aviation group, right? And so I'm reading about how these pilots are volunteer pilots are helping, and the SIG, as it was called, Special Interest Group. We're going back and forth, and I get this post that says that these pilots, under threat of federal jailing, flew for 48 hours, 115,000 pounds of food and supplies to the people in need. Oh my God! I mean, it'll move anyone, right? I was a president of a consulting firm. Of course, I'm very busy, but it moved me so much I wanted to help, right? So it's like, I have an airplane, I can go down there, and I want to be a part of this. And of course, to my surprise, when I finally got to Mary Webb, who was the president of Angel Flight Florida, she thanked me very much and said, "Thank you, no thank you. We have so many volunteers that if you really want to help, Angel Flight itself is not an emergency relief organization. It helps medically needy families, and this is something we do every day. So if you really want to help, Philadelphia has been struggling to get an Angel Flight started. So why don't you help there?" And so it's like, okay, once I make a commitment, it's a commitment. So I went ahead and found the people that were struggling with it. One thing led to another. And a very dear friend, general counsel for Angel Flight, co-founder, in my opinion, of Angel Flight, Jeff Kahn. As a businessman, I knew nothing about nonprofits. So I go to a lawyer, right? So Jeff was my lawyer, our lawyer. And I said, okay, so what do I need to do? How do you make this happen? And he guided us. We put together a advisory committee, founding committee. It was very simple for me. I like to excel. And at the end of the day, if you're going to give people, non-aviation people, a free ride, you want them to have a good experience. I mean, they're already going through a significant trauma, an illness, a family illness, whatever. So our goal was very simple. On day one, the very first flight, which happened to be Baby Madeline, and I'll never forget her. So on that very first flight, I wanted our organization to be so professional that someone wouldn't really know that it was our first flight, right? So we went to every other Angel Flight. We gathered information. We went over it. We created a operating handbook right out of the gate. We set requirements for what it would take to fly. And lo and behold, little Angel Flight of PA, as it was originally called, was born, and we started flying. And Baby Madeline was the very first child from Florida flown up to Philadelphia for what was called a left heart syndrome operation. And so Angel Flight for me was something that I wanted to do. Baby Madeline made it something that I had to do. She changed the whole dynamics. We flew her a couple of times, and on the last flight, she didn't make it. And that's probably the hardest part, is when you're helping somebody and you think that, we're going to figure it out, it's going to work. And it didn't work. But for me, I said, okay, so Harry, you've gotten this started. At the end of the day, you have to make it permanent. Angel Flight has to be a part of our community, just like the Red Cross is. They're there. They're always there. And so doing it part-time, we put in a lot of time. And I think, proof is here you are. Angel Flight is lasted a long time, and I'm very proud of that. So that's the story. And we changed our name to Angel Flight East because at the end of the day, we were flying from New England to Minnesota to Texas to Florida. We were covering a large geography, so it made sense that we were really regionalized, and so ergo we became Angel Flight East.
That's amazing. We always talk about how the pilots develop these relationships with the passengers they fly. So the fact that you'll never forget your first flight with Madeline just makes it all so real and everything. So this episode will be released on September 11th this year. So can you talk about Angel Flight's response to 9/11?
Well, yes, I can. I was in Atlanta on the 10th with a corporate client. And on 9/11, I was heading to the airport to fly back to Philadelphia. When I was able to see one of the towers go down. And as you can imagine, just like every other American, I was devastated. I'm walking around Atlanta in a daze, not knowing, what to do. And there's a news report. One of the directors of the Red Cross from Atlanta needed to get to Washington, D.C. to project manage one of the sites. And he said, we don't know how we're going to get there. We're probably going to drive. Well, one thing led to another. Angel Flight Source, which at the time was Angel Flight Georgia, out of Atlanta, has always been a partner of Angel Flight East. And so I was willing to fly him. And at this point, the Angel Flights within the federal system had a heck of a lot more credibility. So when Angel Flight called the FAA, because all airspace was grounded, FAA granted me special permission. And so lo and behold, 9/12 at about 2:30 in the afternoon, I take the passengers and I fly them into Washington, D.C. And I was the only airplane in the air that I know of. But after that, turned around and continued to Philadelphia, and our phone was ringing. And so the office was closed. We reopened it, and we said, if the country's under attack, we need everyone is all hands on duty. We need help. We need to help people. Angel Flight New England, Angel Flight East, Angel Flight Source, which was Georgia. We all came together to help the country. And what was interesting was, yes, we flew cadaver dogs to New York. We still had patients that needed to get to critical treatment. But I received a call from a medical center in Boston and they said that they were running out of blood. Apparently, they used the airlines to take the blood to Lakeland, Florida, so super analysis, and they could release the blood within 24 hours. Well, without that, the blood would go stale, and so they were like, "Could you help us?" I said, "Well, I'll try to figure something out." Well, then we got a call from Hartford, we got a call from Albany, we got a call from Pittsburgh, all these medical centers saying, "Yeah, us too, we need help." Well, Teterboro, New Jersey had a ton of corporate pilots and planes sitting there. So we devised a spoken wheel whereby the Angel Flight pilots in the Cessnas and the Bonanzas would collect blood. They would bring them all to Trenton, New Jersey. And the FAA gave us permission because New York was locked down, so you weren't allowed to come out of there. And so each of these corporate pilots were given special permission to leave Teterboro, come to Trenton, take our blood supplies that night, and fly them to Lakeland. And we kept that going for, I think, almost 2 weeks. And that meant that the Angel Flight organization, Angel Flight East organization, was in the office from 6 o'clock in the morning till 12 to 1 o'clock in the morning, coordinating all of these emergency relief efforts. And to this day, I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of what we did. That was our story.
It's a good story. I wasn't even there, and I'm proud of that. And you make our PPE deliveries look like a piece of cake.
Well, but the real beauty, I came up with a saying, and part of it was Madeline. Healing should be about getting better, not getting there. This country has so much capability, right? And so you hear the story of a family that needs to get 500 miles, and they're driving a car with over 200,000 miles. We had a situation where the gentleman needed to take time off to take his daughter to get well, and he was fired, right? So the amount of stress that a family has to go through to save their loved one is incredible. And so when you get on board an Angel Flight, it's an angel that is coming to help you. And what that does for the family and the pilot, money or words cannot describe it. You have to experience it.
I think that our pilots get almost just as much, if not more, out of these flights than the patients. And I'm sure that every single one listening right now will tell us that.
I would totally agree. The bond that is created. So we have a passion to fly. I have a passion to fly. To share that, or to use the gift that I've been given to help another, passing it forward in a way that, no donation could possibly compare. So yeah, I would totally agree with you.
What was it like coordinating flights 30 years ago before we had VPOIDs?
And dial-up internet.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, 2,400 baud. Now, so that was an interesting setup. We didn't have an office the way you have one today. So what I did was get a virtual office. So we had Ann Loke, the manager of an executive office park. We had a phone number is all we had, and we had beepers, right? So the one thing you call for help, you got a human being, right? So the office would take the call and then pretty much set off one of the beepers. So we figured out how to set up mission coordinators, so to speak, and it was all volunteer, some retired pilots, and we had our little checklist. Okay, were you medically and financially in need? And that's not always so simple. When we received a call, I think it was Michigan or Minnesota, and the father was an engineer, And so you would think, well, okay, he can afford it. But the medicine that the child had to take was over $20,000 a month.
Wow.
Well beyond their financial capabilities.
Anybody's financial capability.
Yeah. So, some of these treatments, yes, they might, save you, but they can also bankrupt you. Mm-hmm. And so we flew that child from Minnesota to Boston with the help of Lifeline pilots and Angel Flight New England, or Northeast, I guess. Purely a volunteer effort and purely private aircraft. So, you're in the business of recruiting more pilots, right? Because and we made a requirement back then that any Angel Flight pilot had to be an instrument rated pilot, and they could only fly into a towered airport. So, of course, when you're flying people like this, the last thing in the world you want to hear about is an accident. And so for me, safety and safety protocols were paramount, and we followed it. And I'll tell you, one day I was about to break one of my own rules, and the mission coordinator said, "No, you're not on my watch." Okay.
Yeah, we all need those people around us.
Yeah. I feel like normally we end up being the ones who are like, I think we should break this rule.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because just the stories you hear from the families, it makes your bad day seem like not a bad day at all, what these families go through. And you're right, a lot of them could be very financially well off, but if they have to travel multiple times for treatment, those bills add up, the hotels add up, food. So we just always take that into account. Like, yes, maybe they could afford one trip, but not to continuously keep traveling for the treatment that can save their lives.
I would agree with you. And, I had no idea that in some cases, the people have to go for years, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, multiple times a year for treatment. It can get out of hand very quickly.
Yeah, and we've even seen patients now who are going multiple times a month where they have to go and they have to be there every Tuesday. And it's just insane because by the time we get them home, it's right around time for them to go back.
Yeah, I remember many of them. One young lady from West Virginia that had Lyme disease and no one knew it. And her body was shutting down. I mean, she went from 125 pounds to like 80 pounds. And the doctors are telling her mother, well, she has anorexia. And the mother's like, no, she doesn't. I know this girl. No. And it was only this doctor in Long Island that understood it. But we had to take that child multiple times for years. And on the last flight, her mother says to me, you saved my daughter. My daughter's going to be able to get married now. She's going to be able to walk down an aisle. And a wonderful Angel Flight pilot, David Altman, he had a twin Navajo, and he took this girl as if it was his own daughter, and he wanted that mission every single time. And I remember one time that the weather was bad, so he said, "Okay, I'm going to fly you to Bluebell, Wingsfield, and you're going to stay at my house, and then we'll continue the flight in the morning." And that's what they did.
That is just so powerful, the relationships that form.
Well, we appreciate you making time for us.
Well, it's a pleasure, and I'm so glad that you've embraced Angel Flight. It is just so much bigger than I could have imagined, and it warms my heart to see that it is a part of Philadelphia.
I love that. Every time I talk to you, I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity, the founder of Angel Flight. Yeah, what is one final thought you would want to leave our listeners with?
Angel flight is maybe one of the best examples of unselfishly giving without strings, giving because it's the right thing to do, helping your neighbor. I'm not an overly religious person, but nonetheless, it's the right thing to do. And it brings a spirit of community that today we need as much as ever.
Isn't that the truth?
So thank you for continuing it.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you for getting us started. We so appreciate you helping us tell our story.
All right. You have a great day.
You too.
You too.
Wow. I feel like such a productive member of society listening to him talk. And I didn't do anything.
I always love hearing about the story of 9/11 because I had no idea until he recorded that piece for the gala that we did that.
It's crazy. I also just want to point out to our listeners, in that first year of flights with Baby Madeline and a few others, there was only 17 flights done that entire year. We have now grown to do almost 1,000 flights a year. In some cases, we've done more than 1,000 flights a year. So it's just wild to see exactly how things can grow by just putting your care into what's important. And if you have a passion, really following it.
And that's why we drink so much Red Bull.
Yes. Angel Flight East 2023 is fueled by Red Bull and Alani Nu. They aren't even sponsoring us. We actually pay them.
We do.
So, but unless they are listening and want to sponsor us, there's a section for that on our website. See you there.
You always got to add that little plug-in. You never know.
I'm trying. I just want people to pay attention to my hard work. Also, shout out to one of our listeners who actually recommended this as a topic for us. We appreciate it. It also happens to be my dad. Hi, Papa.
I was like, isn't it Kevin Beck?
Yeah, it is. Hi, Papa. Thank you for doing this. We appreciate you. I hope you're still listening at this point.
Yeah, but I feel like a lot of people do ask us how Angel Flight was started. So there's no better person to tell the story than Harry, who is the founder.
Right. I love it. And he really does make our PPE process seem like a cakewalk.
Oh my gosh. I know when he was talking about that, I was like, oh, we've been telling everybody how difficult PPE was. And here you are working 6 a.m. to midnight for those flights. And I was like, we can't talk about PPE anymore after this one.
Yeah, we really didn't do much, huh?
That's amazing, though. I would always talk about that.
Right? I hope that's on his resume somewhere.
It should be.
It's crazy. But I'm so grateful to be a part of something so much bigger than I even knew. Look at us.
And it's my birthday, people.
Oh, shit. Shoot. Sorry. Yeah, that's right. This episode is coming out on your birthday. Happy birthday, Jessica.
Somebody better sing to me today, and it better be at Panache. I won't cry this time.
You mean like when you did in July and you told them it was your birthday even though it wasn't?
Yeah, I hope the Motown band is there again because that's where we're going. I'm planning it. It's right now, July. What is today? July 26th. Mark your calendars, everybody. We're going to Panache today.
See you there, guys.
But thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed hearing the story of Angel Flight and the impact that we had 30 years ago, and we will continue to have.
All through the rest of our lives. See you there.
Bye.
That's it for today's episode of Takeoff Talk with Angel Flight East. If you want to learn more about our services, please visit our website at www.angelflighteast.org or call our office at 215-358-1900. Join us in our mission. If you're a healthcare worker or a patient in need of air travel and flight services, AFE is here for you. Subscribe to the show so you can hear more stories. Join us again next week right here on Takeoff Talk.